Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient slash survivor. Been dealing with cancer since late 2020, early 2021, doing really well. And it is a beautiful summer day here in Texas. I hope wherever you're at, the weather is nice, but it doesn't matter to me, the weather. What matters to me is opening up my eyes and having the privilege and the opportunity for a new day. And that's what we all have. And I hope each and every one of you appreciate that. And today, this is part 3 of my interview series with Teona Ducre, and she is absolutely phenomenal. And so what I want to do is hand it over to her, have her introduce herself once again, and then we're going to get into a great conversation. Teona, please introduce yourself once again and tell us who you are, and we're going to get into some great stuff.
Hey, Mark, it's always great to see you and thank you for having me on again. I mean, to get the opportunity to talk to you once was amazing and a blessing, but to get to talk to you for a third time, I mean, wow, I'm incredibly honored. So thank you so much for having me here. But I'm Teona Ducre. I am in not so sunny Atlanta right now because the weather has thankfully dropped to a nice cool 72 degrees, which is really
Wow.
unusual for us in August. I know it's been raining a lot, but I am here in Buckhead, Atlanta. And I am a stage 3 pancreatic cancer survivor. I am heading into my 10th year being a long-term survivor. So as you referenced earlier, we get up and we get to have life and air and breathe. And all of those are great things because we're here and we're on the other side of this cancer diagnosis. So again, I just want to thank you for having me on and say hi to everybody. And we're going to jump right in, like you said. So what do you want to talk about today, Mark?
We're going to talk about what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some things that, in fact, when I was speaking with Tiona before we started here, I came up with a thought about cancer that I'd never thought about. And so why don't we jump into that right now? So, you know, when a person gets diagnosed with cancer, it's really important, and this is my opinion, take it as you may. If it's something that can help you, great. But just these are our thoughts about cancer. So when you get a diagnosis, it's really important for people to understand that there is life before cancer and there is life once you get cancer because you become a different person. And that's a hard thing to leave behind is the person that you were, particularly physically. Leave that behind because, for instance, in my case, I was in great shape, worked out 4 to 5 times a week, and all of a sudden I get this cancer diagnosis, start getting treatments, and my body has changed drastically. I'm really weak. I went from being really strong to being really weak, down to 123 pounds. But your mind still thinks you're the same, and you have to accommodate your cancer by changing your mindset about who you are as well. And something that Tiona and I were talking about prior to this is, and I had never thought about this, is also too, once you get better, is your mindset also has to change again because now it's like you no longer have cancer and you're moving into your new life of being cancer free or in remission or NED or whatever you want to call it. And so your mind has to change again and your mind has to start building a new life post cancer. So Tiona, would you like to speak about that and what you went through?
Sure. And I think, Mark, this is such a profound concept because I think there's all these different points in the timeline. And we talked about this a little bit last time where you kind of get bogged down in your life with cancer. And a really good friend of mine, a nurse, when I got diagnosed, she said the trick is going to be that your whole life can't be about cancer, Teona. And she said, in every waking minute, it's going to be, treatment and doctor's appointments and all kinds of things. And before you know it, your life is just going to be inundated with something cancerish. And we had uh, no cancer days in my house. It's like there were days that we were like, okay, we are going to talk about anything other than cancer. But I think that as we're going along this continuum of our cancer journey, there's uh, BC, there's before cancer, there's D Day, diagnosis day. And the part that we think the least about a lot of times, and I get it, we think we're not going to get there, AD, after diagnosis, right? Or AC, after cancer, whichever you want to do it. But a really good friend of mine who happened to be going through a cancer diagnosis at the same time I was, she's a my friend, she's Cuban, and she calls me one day, and I'm literally sitting in treatment. And then she says, "Hola, chica," and she says, "Hey, what are you going to do after this?" And I was like after treatment, do I go home and go to sleep or throw up or something? Who knows what I'm going to do, right? It's just no, no, no. I mean, what are you going to do after cancer? And it totally, I mean, I'm sitting there, with my port all plugged in and everything, and I'm like, is there life after cancer? She goes, yes, because she had already been in remission for a period of time. And even though we'd kind of gotten our diagnosis about a year apart, she was going through maintenance chemo, and she says, yes, there's life after cancer. So you need to start thinking about what you're going to do when you're not sitting in that chemo chair every day, because you're going to have to do something with your life. Do you want to do the same thing that you were doing before, or do you want to do something different? And it just really set with me because I have to say, I hadn't thought about it. I was so wrapped up in the day to day of getting diagnosed, having cancer, to some degree, very proudly wearing that. I'm, this rock star cancer patient and all the warrior, whatever, all the things that we tend to label ourselves with while we're just trying to get through this chaotic mess. And I took a deep breath and I said, I need to figure that out. So here I am all these years later, almost 10. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm trying to get past the, pancreatic cancer poster child that I kind of created that persona for myself, but I don't want my life to just be about cancer. My partner, my significant other, was probably one of the first people in my life to treat me outside of my diagnosis because while he met me when I was still going through chemo, he he wasn't there for all the, you know what I mean, all the chaos. By that time, I'd gotten pretty good at doing chemo and stuff like that, and it wasn't as big of a deal, almost a year into it. But I remember one of the things he told me when I told him that I had cancer and was still in treatment. He said, "Well, I don't want our whole lives to revolve around cancer, and I don't want you to be relegated just to the chick with cancer. I want to know you outside of that. Who are you?" And I think that's so important for every person who's been diagnosed, to remember that, like you said, Mark, your life isn't, there was a person you were before, there's a person you are during, but there is a person that you will become after. Ideally, treatment and everything works. It gets rid of the tumor or whatever's going on in your body. And now you're somebody who has lived through this extraordinary experience that we call cancer. Who are you now? And who are you without the label of cancer? And I think a lot of that rests in the individual. Who do you want to be? And I think that's so important for us to ask ourselves because it will help guide us through the next part of the journey.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's so, I think one of the things about cancer is you've got to be able to develop a flexible mindset that is willing to, this is what we're talking about, a mindset that is willing to be open and to adapt with changing situations, changing life situations as we go through this thing that we call cancer. And I think so many people get stuck in certain plateaus of the journey. I I I am so grateful to you because I had never thought about, breaking it down in such a way, but it makes sense. Absolutely makes sense to do that because we've got to keep living. And I'm always advocating about people living their life in spite of having cancer. It's so important. We only go around once. Life is so precious that we need to make the most out of each and every day. And so let's talk about more in detail about some of the aspects of the journey and how we bury things and how we how things are manifested. So if you can uh, talk about that aspect of it and what it meant for you.
Yeah. Um, Again, I think, these are incredible questions because I think it's revealing the parts of cancer that we don't always talk about or that we don't always have the platform. People want to know about, well, what treatment did you take? What did you eat? Like those types of things. But these are some of the nuanced things about cancer that aren't always out in the forefront. So thank you for these particular questions. I think that one of the things that happened very recently, as early as this morning, I was kind of reading a post from another friend who, in the last year, went through an incredibly traumatic experience, her and her family. Um, and she was noting that there was a trigger, something that reminded her of the event that had happened a little over a year ago. And it took me back to, as she was describing what that was like for her, what the trigger did to her, and what it was like for her, almost reliving this moment again that wasn't happening, but it was so, it's like just, I think the word she used was just under the surface, right? I think that is the same for us when we have cancer, or really any illness that we experience that, almost takes our lives from us. One of the things for me that was very profound and really impacted me in a way that I learned that I have to stay present is every time I would go back to the hospital. So there was the hospital and then there was the cancer center, but it was all on the same campus, right? And every time I would go back to like get blood work done or I had to get a scan, I'd have to pass through this little hallway. And as soon as I get there, it's like even just walking up, my stomach would fill with anxiety, like that butterfly nauseated feeling. And sometimes I would actually even like have to run to the bathroom and throw up because I was feeling so nauseated that I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? It took me a long time to figure out. And a friend was the one that actually told me, Teona, like you're reliving the diagnosis. And I was like, what are you talking about? She says, this is where you were at. This building was where you were when you went and took the blood test. And I remember that day that I took the blood test, when I walked out, I kind of knew I was like, oh God, I think I do have cancer. I just taken this blood test. And I remember getting nauseated and then getting sick in that spot. And it never occurred to me that every time I'd pass through there, my body was remembering because it said that your body remembers, even if your mind doesn't, your body remembers. But subconsciously, my body was responding to the trauma that had happened in that spot, even though I wasn't aware of it. And then I was nervous to even go back there to get scans and blood. I was like, oh God, I just don't want to feel bad anymore. So I had to start telling myself, you got to stay present. It's not April 1st, April 16th, whatever that day was, 2016. It's 2018, 2019, 2020, 2022. And this is where I think scanxiety plays into place is we are terrified of that bad news again. And I talk to a lot of people who have been diagnosed with cancer and are living with cancer about scanxiety. It is very real. And they say, well, what do you do about it? How do you get past it? I think it wasn't up until a couple of years ago I stopped getting that fear. And it was staying present and staying mindful. And I don't want to make it sound so easy because I know that it's not. It took me years to get there. But remembering that this is today, and I've already gone through that. Even though my body wants to remember and my mind is doing all of these different things, I'm not newly diagnosed anymore. I don't have cancer anymore. I no longer have a tumor in my body. I am no longer in treatment. I am healthy and well and thriving. And 9 years and 7, 8 months past a diagnosis that has not, knock on something, recurred. So I think for us, learning how to let go, as hard as that is, is one of the key things that we can do. And it's one of those things that has to be a repetitive behavior. And Mark, you may feel differently about this, but I almost want to say you got to wake up and let go every single day. Because every single day we're starting again and letting go of whatever has more than likely even caused this in our body, I think is part of cancer. And there's tons of theories out there, and I am not a clinician, I am not a doctor by any stretch. But I can say for my own life, I believe that I specifically had a cancer that was settling um, in my gut uh, because of the stress and a lot of the trauma that I had experienced early on in my life that I never had a place to put. I think it just ended up building up, and the form that it took, because it wasn't, I didn't let it go, showed up as a tumor in my pancreas that we had to get rid of years later. So I think that the thought of letting go is something that we can put into play in many different parts of our lives.
Well, I want to mention a couple things at this point. Tiona and I are not doctors. We're not saying, you know, this as far as anything medical. We're not coming from this point. We're talking about our own personal experiences. And this is a really real thing, and it's very valid. And here's my solution to what she is talking about. Years ago, back in 2021, I met a woman named Maria Motia. She's from Cyprus, which is near Greece, and she's a hypnotherapist. And I had no clue what hypnotherapy was. None. My perception of hypnosis was you go to some club and there's a hypnotist up there and he hypnotizes somebody, makes them look stupid, jump and tear their clothes off or whatever they do. And that's what most people's perception about hypnotherapy is. That is so far from the truth. I went through hypnotherapy sessions with Maria in Cyprus, and we did it over Zoom. And I am sold that this is a great way. So if you're interested in that, you could message me here on YouTube or through LinkedIn or Facebook, and I'll be happy to get your referral to somebody. But for me, hypnotherapy was very, very helpful, and I feel it works because I mean, and I'll cite you an example for me personally how it worked for me. She told me one session that, you're going to be crying like a baby, and I thought to myself, yeah, right. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go along with this. And so she put me in this hypnotic trance. And the way they do it is you're fully aware of what's going on. You're fully aware of your surroundings and you could come out of it at any time. So she put me in this trance. And then all of a sudden, she took me back to when I was in second grade of all things. I had forgotten about this. And we were playing football on the school grounds, and this kid, uh, we were playing football. I caught this touchdown pass, and this kid uh, took my head and he smashed my head against the chain link fence where the pipe is, and so my mouth went right up against the pipe, and it broke my teeth, and it also gave me a concussion. I'm sure of it now because I was like out of it. But I remember he kept saying, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm thinking to myself, "You lying son of a gun! You're not sorry. You did it on purpose." And so I buried it. In fact, I had totally forgotten about it until she brought it up. But the fascinating thing about it was I was crying like a baby, and I couldn't believe it. In fact, I under hypnosis, I kept trying to stop, and it just got more, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on?" After that session, I felt amazing. And I thought, this stuff really works. So this is just one way of dealing with it. You know, other people have different ways of dealing with it. So, but I think it's very important that we do deal with it because these are things that are important in order for us to grow, get well, and get better. Let's
Absolutely.
move on to the next topic of scans. You talked about scanxiety.
Yeah,
So
I
talk.
have a lot of people ask about that. I'm claustrophobic, so it was on top of the fear of recurrence. It was going in that little tube that I was like, oh gosh, I hate to do this. It drives me nuts. But scanxiety is real, and for people who are dealing with that, that is a very real post-traumatic symptom, I think. Again, not a clinician, not a doctor, not a therapist, but I have heard so many people talk about it, and it is so real. So just want to absolutely acknowledge for people that are going through that, like that is a real thing.
Another thing that's real too, and we've talked about this earlier, is a lot of people that I meet that are um, in remission, NED, are in great fear of recurrence. And I talk to a lot of people that have this. Now, do you think it's healthy that you have these thoughts on a daily basis? Uh, I mean, personally, I don't. I don't think it's helpful. So if you could talk about that,
Yeah.
Teona.
I so the idea that cancer takes over our lives, it takes over our bodies, and I think it takes over our mind. And we've talked about this a little bit, Mark, that a lot of times what you think is what your body clings on to. If we are constantly thinking that we are unwell, that we are unhealthy, I saw this in a TED Talk one time, a statistic that the person that was presenting said they did like reports about people that like they said that stress causes heart attacks and anxiety causes heart attacks and all these things. But what they figured out is it wasn't like the stress, it was the thinking about the stress that was causing the heart attack. So the people that were kind of like not real bothered by the fact that they might be stressed out, they didn't have heart attacks. The people that were worried about having a heart attack, they were the ones that were stressed and having heart attacks because they were just thinking, I don't want to have a heart attack. I don't want to have a heart attack. I think that in the cancer space, recurrence is again real. The statistics are often high, and that creates anxiety because we've already gone through it once. I think I've always said, okay, if I ever have to go through this, I'm just hopping a plane to Europe and just going to go along my happy little way because I'm not going to do all the stuff that I had to do to just get this far. Now, whether or not that holds true, but I try to focus not on the recurrence, but on the living. And I think that this goes back to that, what I said in the very beginning, there is life after cancer. And if we're still living in our diagnosis, it's like we never got rid of it the first time. We are still living in the space of a diagnosis that is, however, whether it's a week, a month, a day, whatever the case is. I try to remind people that you are a survivor from day one. I didn't think that way initially. Somebody else told me that, shared that little nugget of wisdom. And they said, oh, are you a survivor? I said, well, I'm trying to become a survivor. I just got diagnosed, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And this very amazing woman stopped me and she said, stop that. You are a survivor. Every single day that you get up and this disease has not taken your life. So I think in the space of, or in the spirit of thinking, what do we want to fix our minds on? Yes, when you're actively going through treatment, it's really hard to think about anything else. Once you've gotten through that, I think you've got to really make every intention to move forward and not cling on to it. Because whether or not it comes back, you don't have a whole lot of control over. You can absolutely do things from a health perspective, all of those things to prevent it, but I think, again, more than anything, how we think about things, what we're ingesting into our bodies, whether it's food or our thoughts or our consumption of our social media, whatever, all of those things can play into recurrence. And those are things that we can control. So living outside of the recurrence and living in the now are the things that help us to stay well. And it doesn't matter how long we stay well. The point is to be well, no matter how long that is. So I think people definitely do fall into I think I saw it in a ABC TV show. I think it was called 10 Million Little Things, and one of the characters has cancer. And he says something to the effect of when he's trying to explain to his buddies, his friend group, that what cancer is like. And he says, I live 3 months at a time. And they said, why 3 months? Because every 3 months I have a scan. And I used to live like that. And I used to co-sign that message. Yes, I live 3 months at a time. I'll be fine, after this next 3 months. Well, I never got there in terms of the thought that I'm missing 3 months of life, or, however many days that turns out to be, if I'm just waiting for that next scan. The scan is going to come. And if the cancer comes back, it comes back. I will deal with that then. It's almost like paying tax on something that you haven't even purchased yet. So why live in that space of the what if? We can be healthier and live healthier if we're here right now. We don't know where we're going to be later on. So why let cancer take our lives twice, right? From the diagnosis and then every day after that. I'm constantly fighting against that.
I just came up with the thought just now after listening to you. And this is, again, something that I had never thought about. When we get cancer, we have, I think, two separate cancers. We have cancer of the body and we have cancer of the mind. So when our body gets healed, has our cancer of the mind been healed? And that is something that may be even tougher to cure, even though people don't even acknowledge it, is cancer of the mind, because we have to help our mind heal as well. And so that is can even be even tougher than the body, uh, because the mind is such a complex thing and it's so powerful. Our minds are so amazing and so powerful, and we have a tremendous ability with our minds to do so many things. What are your thoughts on that?
I just got chills when you said that, and I wrote that down. We have cancer of the mind, and then we have cancer of the body. So our body healed, and that's a lot of times that's the easiest part, Mark. It's
Right.
like I didn't have a lot of stress about having cancer when I had cancer, because I was like, there's a whole team of really smart people working on this. I didn't feel alone. I was just like, okay, well, they're going to do what they're going to do, and they're really smart, so they'll fix it. So I felt very hopeful that they could fix it. But the cancer of the mind, that part is, I think, in some regards, even bigger, Mark, because again, that's the part
Right.
we can control. There is so little about cancer that we can control. There is so few things just in the world that we can control. But the space that I think we do control is in our mind. And that is the bigger part of the battle. I think deciding on the front end that we're going to do everything that we can do to control what our minds are thinking and doing. I think I heard, I think I follow Michael Beckwith. He might be, because you're from Santa Monica. I don't know if you know him. He's with Agape International Church. And I've heard him say this multiple times. He's like, your mind will go rogue if you don't reel it in, right? Your mind is over there doing its own thing, thinking things that half the time aren't even real. It will have you going down a road that isn't even there. And I think that when we're fighting cancer in our body, it's very easy to let our minds get worn down because we're so focused on the part that we can often see, like through a scan. We can tell there's something wrong, but then like within our minds, that cancer, that something wrong shows up too. I think it shows up in our anxieties. It might even show up in our words. I think our mind will absolutely do the things that we tell it to do, but then our mind is also controlling our body. So if we are telling our mind we are sick, we're not well, all of those things, our mind is going, okay. And then it's shifting that little message down to our body to say, hey, pancreas, hey, intestines, hey, she's saying that you're not well and you're not good. And the next thing we know, our body is there going, oh, yeah, we're sick, right? I think we have to control that space and remember, again, this is the letting go that we talked about earlier. All the chemo in the world, all the radiation, all the surgeries, everything else can work to get rid of tumors and, blood cancers and things like that. But we're the ones that are in charge of and responsible for maintaining, curing our minds. And we can do it. It's not as easy as just telling ourselves that. We actually have to take initiative in doing that. And then we actually have to do the work that goes along with it. We're so faithful to go to chemo because we want to get fixed, but are we as faithful in the space of our minds and caring for that organ in our body as we are with everything else?
Wow, that is beautiful. This is something that I've never done before. I've never done a four-part series. Would you like to come back and shoot a
I'm
final
going to keep saying
part
yes
four?
to you. You know that. Because in a short period of time, I think we've really formed an incredible friendship and love our conversations both on and off the air. So I will come back as many times as you ask me to, and we can have big conversations and talk about all the things that are out there inside and outside of the cancer world.
Awesome, awesome. I have one final question.
Mhm.
Why do you think you're still alive?
Yeah. It's funny because people ask that question in a lot of different ways. What did you do to kick cancer's butt is usually how it comes across. But I like this question better. What did I do and why am I still alive? I don't think I did anything. I think I had a whole bunch of things working in my favor from my age to an incredibly aggressive medical team that was on my side and advocating to make sure that I saw another day. I had health insurance. All of those things played a role in it. I think that I am here today because there's still work to be done. For whatever reason or other, I'm here because there's work to do. A long time ago, my stepmom, she used to have a theory. She would say, I never finish everything on my desk so that I have a reason to come back the next day. So I think that I am here because a lot of things worked together to put me here. Community, family, friends, treatment, health insurance, all of those things came together to put me here today. I think that I am still striving to live beyond cancer and stay on this side of it. So I'm hoping that those combined efforts will keep me here for a really long time because there's a lot of work that needs to be done and there's a lot of life that still needs to be enjoyed.
Couldn't have said it any better. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Tiona. It's been awesome as always. And I just want to thank each and every one of you out there. And I hope you got something out of this uh, really phenomenal conversation that we've had because there's things that we came up with here that I had never thought about, which hopefully you can take uh, and learn from and hopefully benefit your life. And that's what it's all about, is learning and growing and expanding your knowledge of what we're talking about here. And I hope each and every one of you has a fantastic week. And please like, subscribe, make a comment in the comment section, and make the most out of each and every day because each and every day is precious. It's a gift. That's why it's called the present. And have a fantastic week. And we will see you next week for part four of our interview series with Teona Ducre. Teona, thank you so much as always. It's been awesome. And we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.